time is now 5:20 p.m., calling this work session to order. Present, we have Councilmember Yarbrough, Councilmember Rodriguez, and Councilmember Hodges. At this time, Councilmember Cornelison and Mayor Pro Tem Mize are not present. A quorum is present. Ms. Winkle. Oh, wait a minute. A couple things before we begin. First is a reminder, this is a workshop. The purpose is for information to be presented to the council, and the council will have the opportunity to have things clarified for them. There is no public input during a workshop. Council, during and after the presentations, you have the opportunity to ask questions, but please be mindful of what might be better suited for executive session during the council meeting. While this will be a great start of sharing information and asking questions, keep in mind that next week is the council's last meeting before we seat a new council. Also, there may be a future need for other workshops and public answers or public hearings to answer the new council's and citizens' questions. I plan on adjourning this workshop in the 6:15 to 6:20 if we go that late, so that we can prepare for the council meeting at 6:30. Ms. Winkle.
So you have before you in your work session packet a presentation Mr. Bailey will be giving to you on the Dove Valley development regarding a development agreement that was originally signed in 2021 with Susan R. Wilburn, Ronald W. Wilburn, and MAAK Enterprises and the City of Godley. Dove Valley has a proposal now with some amendments and the reinstated development agreement. So I'll let him take it from here, Mr. Bailey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is McGregor Bailey. I'm with Lennar Homes. And like Angie and Chris mentioned, this meeting's just mainly to get this deal off High Center. I know there's been a lot of questions regarding the development agreement and whatnot. So this is just a presentation to get everyone on the same page, get everybody's input so we can start moving forward. I know Godley has had a lot of turnover and a lot of stuff going on here, so we're just looking to get insight from y'all to help make this deal work. So we can get into it now. So here's some items that we would like to discuss today. First one being the ETJ boundary, and then we have the wastewater treatment plant to the north, some VA amendments that we would like to run by y'all, development standard amendments as well, propose our different various lot sizes, and our project timeline and schedule. So right here we have the existing ETJ boundary. We would like the entire property to be annexed into the Godley's ETJ. As you can see right now, tract 2 of the entire proposed development is partially in the ETJ. We would like to revise ETJ in order to encompass the entire thing. Yes, please. And then here's our proposed ETJ boundary. And then here we have the wastewater treatment plant. It was originally proposed to be to the south of this tract to the left, but we had a permitted TCQ review as of right now to move it up to the north. This works better in design in conjunction with our development and Godley ISD's proposed school site to the west. Right now, as I mentioned, the discharge permit's in review at TCQ. We're anticipating approval in Q1 of 2026. The MUD will own, operate, and maintain the wastewater treatment plant. And then we can kick off design of the wastewater treatment plant. We just can't go physically build a treatment plant until Q1 of 2026. So that leads us to this. We would like to propose the city to allow for pump and haul at our expense should the wastewater treatment plant not be ready at the time of home sales. Let me know if y'all have any questions or concerns regarding any of these items as I go along.
what is your timeline that you're talking about sale of homes and residents being in? What's your timeline you're looking at for that?
Well, that's dependent on kind of we get the development agreement amended and approved. We're pretty quick, we're pretty efficient at what we do, so I would say, once we get that in order, it'd probably be 4 to 6 months for construction drawings, maybe. Scott, does that sound reasonable timeline?
It does.
So that's, approval, permitting, and then once we get there, we can break ground, and I suspect 14 to 18 months, we'll deliver homes, so. And then the treatment plant will take roughly 8 to 12 months to build. So that'll put us right near home starts.
When you say Q1, are you talking calendar year?
Yes.
Okay.
Will the wastewater treatment plant be on school property or on the veterans?
It will be on the ISD's property, within an easement.
Their property, your ownership of the plant, though.
Correct, the MUD's ownership.
May I ask why that y'all didn't put it on your property instead of putting it on the school?
I believe it was previously discussed with ISD, this was just the location that was most efficient for design both of the school site and our property.
Sorry. But you stand here by yourself.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. My name is Greg Urick. I'm president of Land for Lennar. Sorry I was late for this. I'm here to help answer questions as well. So, and you asked why was it not on the property, subject property? Yeah. It was because the school district wanted it closer to their property. It would reduce the cost to bring the lines into where the wastewater treatment plant was, or would be located. The original location was much further away to the south.
So the school district be sharing in any cost of the wastewater treatment?
No. The developer will be commencing all of that work up front, and all the school district would be doing is expanding it for future use for additional schools. The agreement was not made to just develop the entire wastewater treatment plant for whatever the school district might use at full build out for them. So it's about probably 50%. And then once they get through, a few buildings, then they would take on the rest of the expansion as they need to in the future, 10 to 15 years from now.
So if the MUD is maintaining it, when they add their additional lines later, the MUD's still gonna maintain that even though the school district's adding to it and using it?
I believe the city, this would become a city wastewater treatment plant, and the city would actually take over.
I believe on your update that you guys included in this package has axed out the city ever having anything to do with the mud plant. It said delete paragraphs.
Okay, well, we're open to discussing anything. This is not something that we're like trying to say, this is what we want to do. It was really more of trying to discuss, here's the goal for the development, right? This is what we as a home builder would like to do in this community. And we want to make sure we communicate the pros and cons of all of this to the city. And we're open to all of your feedback, and if it's not something the city wants to do, then we don't want to waste anybody's time. So this is to discuss any challenges you have or any things you don't like about this, so we can put them all on the table, and we can go back and analyze it, and make sure we answer your questions clearly too, if we don't have the answers right.
Yeah, so Stephanie worked for the city at that time when this went through, but for the rest of us, this is the first time we are getting any presentation on this.
Can I restart then for a second?
One question.
Yeah.
If you're weren't aware of the recent changes to the development agreement, who's doing the development agreement if you're the
We have
developer?
a team working on it, right? So I don't have a copy of it in front of me. I didn't look at it today before this. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss it with y'all in just an open session to let you know, we've been working on this for almost 2 years. We like the location, we love Godley, right? And we believe that it's a good opportunity for a future master plan community. We had questions about, you know, the boundary, the ETJ boundary. We had questions about wastewater treatment plant, making sure that we understand, you know, we're gonna front all the costs. The school district needs it for their expansion too. They're gonna take over later, but it's a city wastewater treatment plant. That's what I remember, right? But beyond that is to listen to your feedback.
So just,
I can go back and answer any questions later, but I don't have it memorized for you to be able to answer it in detail right now.
just to get us on the same sheet, section 1.3 is the section about the city operating and the option to acquire the wastewater treatment plant. In your amendment, it is to delete everything in section 1.3 in its entirety.
Typically a MUD has a term life of about 30 years, usually. And so after 30 years, that's when the MUD would, or the treatment plant would be annexed into the city. It would now be city infrastructure.
And so, knowing that, right, you look at that, and that's a benefit, because this is a city infrastructure that you don't have to build and you don't have to maintain for 30 years. And if we put that in the agreement, then the MUD has a maintenance tax in it that will pay for the maintenance.
And these are package plants you can add on and expand as needed. Obviously, the trunk line would need to be expanded as well, but
But who would do all the approvals for expanding it at that point? Is it always going to be just the MUD?
After the 30 years, once it's handed off, that's what we put in the agreement, it's all of the cities, and city does it yourselves. Y'all would review what's necessary for expansion, your internal engineer staff would review that and approve to expand it, if not, at that time, for future developments.
What about in your 10 years when you said the school's going to add additional schools out there and add to the sewer plant? Who's liable at that point in time?
Well, that's a great question.
still the MUD.
It's still the MUD, so MUD will review it, but we're gonna have to visit with the city as well to make sure that the city approves the design. And again, those were the comments that we would put in the agreement. And so the intent was to have an open discussion, dialogue about the goals from our perspective as a developer of the project, what your goals and concerns are as a town here, and what you want to see in this community, and try to field as many questions as we can, make sure that we go back and answer more questions in detail tomorrow and give you proper feedback.
Yeah, I would like answers to those questions that I asked would, if it's only gonna be 50%, you're saying the MUD's gonna pay for it. You're saying the city doesn't get it till after 30 years.
Correct.
So who permits it within that 30 years? Who's gonna permit the school district expanding off of it? And is the school district gonna be responsible, or the city gonna be responsible during that 30 years for any of the maintenance, of this treatment plant? Or are you saying the MUD is gonna be completely responsible for 30 years for that, no matter what you expand to?
I believe so. I need to look more in detail of the MUD agreement, but overall standard MUDs are typically have a life of about 30 years.
And then the city would still be responsible
Robert, that's not
or
answering the
involved
question.
in reviewing the plans.
They would-
to make sure it's designed properly for the city.
Yes, and the MUD would own and maintain.
Also talk about how the school's going to be benefiting, how much you
Right.
guys, this cost, and who all benefiting
I don't
from
know, I'm gonna ask.
this being out.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Ron Ball.
Thank you.
So, one of the benefits is wastewater treatment plants can cost about $20 million or so, right, ballpark, and they're designed in phases. And so the first phase is most expensive because you have to get everything up and running, there's extra work that needs to be done. It's usually about almost $8 million for the first section. Beyond that, it's about $5 million at each upsize, and the engineers review all that, they meet with city staff and engineers to make sure it's designed properly to accommodate the growth, and because you have to have pressure flowing through those lines. And so, one of the big benefits is the school district needs this for expansion as well, And so it helps them make sure that they have sewer operations for the facilities that they would need, you know, when they go to construct their buildings. And they don't have to pay for this either. This is something that the development would pay for.
With this particular mud, who's going to be assigned to the board?
I would have to verify that. That's something that will answer your
That
question.
will hold elections to be who's gonna be on the mud board.
So should I go through the slides? Would you like me to do that, or?
Sure, we can. I mean,
Just kind of, maybe there's some summary there that you'll see, and I don't wanna.
this is our only topic for the next half hour, so.
Okay, all right. And please interrupt as we get going. So, did you go through the slide yet?
I have not, we just went through
I didn't touch it.
Okay, so, no, this is perfect, right, so the idea was there's an existing concept plan. And so when the deal was brought to us about 2 years ago, I think there were 40-foot lots and some 50-foot lots, right, and maybe some 60-foot lots. There were alleys in there, and that's one thing that stood out to us. We don't prefer alleys, right, and everyone has their preference, but the majority of buyers, and the data that we see is that it's less desirable. It looks better from the street. You don't have a garage in the front of the home, but you have a smaller backyard, and there's a safety issue with alleyways sometimes. So we prefer to go straight front entry for all the lots in the community. We still would like to maintain 40-foot lots and maintain some of that higher density. That was one of our goals. That supports affordability for the community and adds a larger price range of homes that would be maybe 250 up to 400,000 on larger lots, 50 and 60-foot lots. And so one of the main questions or main points we wanted to bring up is we wanted to get rid of the alley-loaded lots. We wanted to maintain 40-foot lots and have all be straight front entry. That's something that's very different from a concept plan that was done 2 or 3 years ago. Modify a few minor things, and these are more engineer things, again, but side setbacks on corner yards, things like that adjacent to streets. Design standards. Right now, the DA talks about, you need to pick, I think, 4 features of homes out of 10, and every home needs to include at least 4 of those features. So we were just adding more features here to the homes, 100% brick, divided light windows, which means you can have a single pane window, so you can have the divided light in there. It's a little bit more decorative from the street. Cast stone address blocks, trees, just a few other elements. And again, open to discussion, and if there's something else that, after you all thought through this, you wanted us to add, we could look at adding more features as well to choose from. Something to note, that those are choices, right? And the existing DA says 4 out of the following. So if there's something that's really important to you, we want to hear that. We've got 612 roof pitch, which is just basically, it's about the average roof pitch. And it's when you face the home from the street. They call that the primary. 812 is steeper, 1012 is really steep. And so costs go up when you're at 8 to 1012. 612 is a little bit more affordable because the truss is inside the roof, less wood. And just a few other minor things that are not as aesthetic, just things that we wanted to note.
Changing from rear entry to front entry for the single-family 4. What, your street width there,
Yes,
what is that gonna be?
I'd have to find that out and let you
Because
know.
we've got that issue in another neighborhood that
Mhm.
right now doesn't allow fire trucks to get
Okay.
through.
Okay. And that's important because what we look at is the lot count, right? And it's kind of a numbers game too. So as long as we understand what the lot count can be, we want to enhance the community in every way possible. And if there's a width of street that you want us to go consider and then engineer and put that into the concept plan, we can do that and make sure if we don't lose many lots, that's great.
I mean, it's definitely, I don't know what the dimension is, but it definitely has to allow
I agree.
school bus, fire truck, ambulance, police car to get through.
I agree completely.
Otherwise, That's just a new
I
liability.
agree completely. So we'll look at that and make sure that we understand what typical widths are. We'll work with your engineer as well to do that. Next slide. So I mentioned the land plan. The original was more blocked out. This is the original as part of the DA?
Yes.
Or not? Because this doesn't, so what happened is this was attached to a DA, but then the DA itself had alley loaded in there, which is just really confusing. There was 3 concept plans, I think, that we looked at. And so what we wanted to do is just try to say, here's what we've seen before. We're all kind of new to what the town really wanted, and then what we as a developer were proposing. So original land plan that's attached to the DA is on the left, and it's gridded out, and the one on the right is more curvilinear and includes more open space and parks. You could easily argue in that the one on the left's not even really developable, you know, I would say, but regardless, that was what was in the DA. Those are some elements of the DA that need to be cleaned up regardless of who your developer is. And so, we have 40, 45, and 50-foot home sites here. All of them are the same depth, and that allows for some flexibility in the future. If we or another developer wanted to go from 40s to 45s, you can do so easily as long as the lot depth is the same. So, next slide.
This doesn't meet
Yeah.
our minimum lot size.
I don't know. This is smaller and short than what your minimum lot size is.
I don't think your largest meets is smaller than our minimum.
No.
Agreed, understood. But in the existing DA, you have 50-foot lots in the existing DA. So we're modifying the existing DA that already had some of those lot sizes approved in it. And what we could do, which is a better exhibit for you, is probably just put information in 2 columns. Existing DA, so you can see, just organize for you well what's included in there, and then what we would propose. That way it's more detailed and side by side for you.
Do these, do these agreements expire if they're not acted upon within a reasonable amount of time? No.
Not unless they have a specific provision providing for that.
Next slide. Okay. What questions do you have? And feedback. I have thick skin.
I realize I combined some of my information. It does state in here, although we'll never have ownership of it, but it does state that we would manage it and run day-to-day operations.
For the wastewater treatment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, yeah.
What's that add? What's that add
Cost.
to our requirement for personnel? I mean-
I wouldn't know what would have to be all of it. That's a good question to look at, and again, if we've stated in the agreement, and we were to move forward and finalize this, go back and forth with all the comments, right? We would make sure that's spelled out, we understand what we're maintaining, what the MUD is maintaining at their expense, and what would be a city expense.
Is this always going to be only residential? Because there was a provision in here that talked about if there was commercial, there would be a split of sales tax and things like that, but I don't see where there would even be any commercial.
I agree with you. As a landowner, that would be up to the owner, Ron, who's here. But on the concept plan, Lennar's intention as a developer would be, all of that would be residential. Now, there is more property to the south that's included in the DA. We have the northern parcel under contract with Ron.
Are you talking about right here?
Much further south and much larger. So it is connected, there you go, right there.
Okay.
That is connected, that's part of the DA, it's part of the mud.
That's what we're talking about now.
And there could be some opportunity there, and some of the language in the DA kind of refers to the property as a whole. But my personal opinion is that the property that we have under contract wouldn't have any retail, any mixed use.
So this is on track one.
Yes. So the agreement was for both tracks or the
So-
original agreement?
Lennar's under contract to buy the northern parcel from the Wellborn family.
Track one.
That's correct. We are not under contract with Tractor.
Funding was not answered, correct? That's a future, funding is a future answer as to how the wastewater treatment plant would be funded. The initial multi-million dollars it takes to,
Right.
before you break ground.
Right. I mean, that's a great question and point. Lennar, as a developer, we have, this is our largest division in DFW, and we have about 7 master plan communities, and they are all extremely expensive. And so the good thing about Lennar as a buyer and developer of properties is that as a public company, we've got the cash to make sure we carry it through. I'm also, and my team, we're on the board of the HOA. So we stay through all the way, you know, helping the homeowners who buy into a community learn the HOA, make sure that budget of the HOA is good as well. The infrastructure up front, 20 million, you know, the 8 million or so, we have to put that on our budget for the homes in the first phase. Water expansion, the cost for water expansion as well, you know, another $10+ million, working with JSUD and the other entities that are in the area to make sure that we have the water infrastructure for this community. Phase 1 is always extremely expensive to get off the ground, but we don't go to third-party equity like a private developer might, so the financial requirements are a little different, and that we're not as focused on the return as we are focused on the overall profitability of a development, and making sure that we stand behind bringing it to life and putting the money in the upfront to carry it through.
So you're footing the bill and getting paid back on the backside, no bond, no,
As a district, we're gonna issue mud reimbursements, and we will get reimbursed as we go through development. But that's not until there's rooftops on the ground. So, we will get reimbursed for a lot of the money that we're putting in here. Any developer will, because the mud exists in it. So anybody that comes and buys this is gonna go through a similar process. Some developers try to go get the money up front and issue bonds up front. That allows them to go get creative with their financing. We don't do that for several reasons. One, we don't need to. But two, if I have a bust in the future in development costs, I have the ability to modify my reimbursements as we go and cover my bust in development. Versus developers who take it all up front, they run the risk of having a bust in the future and not being able to cover it. Long answer, yes, we'll get reimbursed. And there's an extra tax rate associated with this, call it an assessment or something. There's an extra assessment as well. But those things are in place today.
In the mud.
So the mud, you know, kind of acts as a city in a way. So if we weren't in a city boundary, right, and we had nothing to do with a city, we have muds that exist today in some of our communities that we developed. And so there's a dollar tax rate for that, and they call it an assessment. And so us as a developer, we even put $20–30 million worth of sewer in, and we ran water lines, and we're getting reimbursed over time by issuing bonds, just as a city would for expansion. But because there's no city, we get to do that through the district. And in here, we work hand in hand with the city to discuss, okay, wastewater treatment plant has to be built. We work with you and your engineer team to design it properly, fund it, and then manage how it's handed off to you over time as a partner. That's the biggest benefit to this deal. When I first looked at it 2 years ago, I thought, okay, I'm confused on the ETJ. I heard so many different things from different attorneys that worked on the project, different engineers that worked on the project. And we all thought, okay, well, there's something here that's special, it makes sense. You've got the schools nearby, you've got infrastructure that needs to be expanded. This is a great opportunity for y'all, I think, in the development world, to be able to control and expand your development, right? This is where it's gonna happen. If we're not the right buyer and end user, that's fine, right? But the city needs the wastewater treatment plant, the school district does, and it's a good opportunity, depending on your bond issuance and schedules that y'all deal with on the finance side, to have somebody else do it for you, and to work hand in hand and design the community so it makes sense for your goals. School district as well, I mean, it's a great location, it's a good deal,
So you're just wanting all of it in the ETJ, not actually annexed into the city limits?
That was kind of up for discussion. That's what I just wanted to discuss with y'all, honestly. So, and I think it's planned for a MUD, right? If you annex into a city, you have twice the tax, and that doesn't work for the homeowners paying those taxes. And so what happens a lot of times is we'll look at the tax stack and we'll say, okay, well, if you want it in the city, we can do that, but then a lot of cities that we do that with give a TERS, which is a credit to that tax stack. So if this district has $1 tax rate, we're gonna charge $1 to the home buyers, homeowners that live there, you know, for their tax at the end of the year. And if the city has a 50 cents tax rate, I don't remember what your tax rate is, but if it's 50 cents, then some cities, we have 2 cities that do this, Crandall is one that did this with us. They gave us a 25-cent credit. So the $1 that I charge and I issue bonds on and get reimbursed on to pay for all that, homeowners are only getting charged 75 cents instead of the $1 because the city participated in a credit. So there's lots of ways to look at that. It's complicated, but it's up for discussion with us, you know, and with Ron, if you want to talk about annexing into the city and what that looks like, what's the tax rate at the city. Because once you do, a developer doesn't want to charge $1 to all the homeowners living there. It's too high of a tax rate, but then they can't get reimbursed. And so it goes back into that financial equation. But we're really transparent, which is what we want to just discuss with you on, answer your questions, and we can do the math for you and show you what it looks like. And what the reimbursements look like, how much there are as well.
Have we looked at an ETJ map to see if what is not in the ETJ is eligible to be applied to come into?
as the ETJ stands today?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It's that
This
little
slide.
corner there.
Yeah, I see that, but they're wanting to bring it all in. Is that still open area, or has Fort Worth ETJ taken that, or
Oh, no,
I'll show
no,
you.
that-
You want me to show
It's
you?
in the county.
Are you asking me or him?
whoever?
Oh, I can show you, the rest of it.
Okay.
I'm gonna replug it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I do want to point out that in this agreement, we actually don't have the right to really use the wastewater treatment plant unless we pay for the oversizing. So it's beneficial for the school, but I don't see a ton of benefits for the city.
Well, agreed, right? Not until city actually takes over, let's say 30 years from now. But I think we just have to look at that, and you gotta tell us what you wanna see. Here, like, what are the concerns you have like that? The idea is that it can be expanded. And it needs to be expanded based on what your requirements are for development and new development that come into the area that need to use that wastewater treatment plant. And I don't know enough about what your city's goals are about expansion in the area and who else would want to use it. But I'm open to anything. There's so much math and engineering that goes in behind all the design for that. Some of those questions go towards your engineer, And maybe the question would be, if we wanna expand, we wanna see this in the area, if you want development or not, but let's assume you want it. Then you say, how many homes would be in this area, if you want all 60-foot lots or whatever the minimum is that you want. And then what they would do is they would then take that home count, that future home count outside of the valley. They would then give it to our engineers, we would have to spend the money to do it. And then we would go and look at, okay, well, the wastewater treatment plant area has the ability to expand max build out, I'm making it up, 10,000 homes, right? Plus the school facilities. Okay, well, if Dove Valley is 2,000 or 3,000 homes total property, then the extra 7,000 homes, which sounds huge, would take this much more wastewater treatment plant. And then we would provide you with the number, and we understand what the costs are. Maybe it's a negotiation, honestly. It's just, hey, we want you to upsize. If Dove Valley is 3,000 homes or 2,500 homes total Dove Valley, we want you to upsize the first phase or however you go through your responsibility to 3,500 instead. But those are the things that we just need to know, like what your questions are, and how to be able to address them properly. But right now, as it stands, 100% on the city to expand for residential outside of the valley.
Is JSED still going to have capacity for you for this project?
I hope so.
They're under design right now, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's a huge problem in the area, you know, and they slowed down development about a year and a half ago. And then they came up with a new plan to require impact fees paid in advance of each phase development. And so all of the developers, all of us, thank God, you know, we're able to go pay them in advance and then start development while they're expanding their water capacity right now. So again, we have to work with them to see where they're at today and understand how much capacity they have now and then 3 years from now and 7 years from now. The goal is all these municipalities expand over time as development increases. There's major shortages in North Texas, so it's a big problem. Power companies actually use those more. I don't know that. My goal, I've been doing this for 20+ years. I love what I do. I love land, I love development, but I want to do it the right way. So I want to help people, right? And if this isn't a fit, if you guys have questions, you can email me about anything, any advice you want, you know, and I'm just happy to help. So I don't want to come across as if we want to come do this and it's our way. We have full authority to reject us and we'll be on our way, you know.
Was it you that sent me the email back in
Your name's so familiar, but I'm not sure, you know.
2023 about the land sale?
Maybe. Here or somewhere else?
Here.
Maybe, yeah, because your name's so familiar.
So I take it that it's under contract, but it hasn't.
That's correct, we have not bought it, we're under contract. It's not a done deal, and, you know, we want to do the right thing, I know Ron does too, and it's really just getting this discussion, you know, which we haven't been able to do. And so I'm just thankful to be able to talk about this with y'all and let us know your feedback, and that way Ron can take it back. If Lennar's not the buyer, Ron needs to know what he needs to do, you know? I mean, you can imagine us owners and developers and builders, we're all being told so many different things. We want to do the right thing. We want to have good, clear direction and feedback. We want to do the right thing, and we need to estimate for it all. So the best thing we can do is just make sure we understand transparently, candidly, what you want. Some of this stuff does need to be fixed. There are some errors in the DA. I want to make sure you're aware of that. And the DA, ETJ is one of the errors in there, is what everybody's been telling us. So it needs to be cleaned up, but also want to know what the town's goals are for future development.
Question, Lindsay. With regard to a contract that has provisions that are false, is it still a contract?
Yes, that's already has severability clauses in it, so it would just be, you could just sever that portion from the rest of the contract. So like the property description that is
So then in theory, that would mean that that portion which isn't in the ETJ could be struck,
Would not be subject to the,
would not be subject to the DA. But the rest of the agreement is in effect.
correct.
Doesn't that make kind of a mess?
It does.
I
Kind
don't
of.
understand it either, that's where I've been stuck, and I don't know who to ask, and
But it doesn't void the entire agreement.
Correct.
that's the first time I've heard that, so, and I still don't know what it means. But those are the types of things that clarity is great, whatever we need to do to help get clarity. I wanna do that for Ron and his family too, so they know what they're working with.
And
So I appreciate your questions.
Mr. and Mrs. Welburn's interest is outside the ETJ right now. That's that strict portion that's at the top.
Yeah, if you could go back to that, just to clarify, so we're on the same page on what we're discussing. When we're just showed track one. That's okay.
Did you ever get the,
No,
If it's not in the ETJ, why?
Did not look? Oh, it's loading, okay. I wanna go
It
to
was-
just to track
By
one,
authority, nothing.
just track one, the Wellborn property. That's the combination.
Yeah.
I don't think it wants to.
Oh, that's the only one you have?
With ETJ.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. So the Wellborn property on that? Yeah. I think all of it, or maybe there's a tiny corner, but almost all of it is outside the ETJ.
well, from that, it looks like much of track, is that one or two on the bottom?
That's
Two.
two on the bottom.
Looks like much of track two is outside as well.
Right, and we don't have that under contract, but it's part of your DA, and it's part of the MUD, the district that was formed, which makes it more confusing.
I will say, I don't think the issue will be with you as the builder. I think the issue is a lot of our residents don't like the lot sizes that were agreed to, and I know that
I
that's
know.
not really your problem.
I know.
And most of us, none of us were up here when that agreement was made either. And I think the other issue is that our residents don't like MUDs either.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that don't, you know.
Right.
Proper disclosures that you have to put up in the welcome home centers of the homes and stuff. These are things that, you know, you've got something in place, I guess is enforceable, you know, and I'm sure you could keep digging into that more. But if you have it in place, you know, a lot of cities that I've worked with in the past, they require us to put notifications up all over the welcome home center. We attach addendums to the back of our contracts for each home buyer. And as an end user, we kind of manage that internally versus a separate developer trying to enforce a bunch of builders to do that. The right developer can. There's a lot of good developers out there. That's a problem you're gonna have. The lot sizes, you know, if you've got 40s in the plan today and maybe they're alley loaded, you know, that's just one of those things that you have to comb through that and see what's existing today. The discussion I wanted to have is, okay, well, if we really want this deal to happen, these are the things that we see. But, you know, we would do an on-site, air conditioning mini center, have an on-site HOA manager. Those are the types of things that really enhance the community and help, you know, increase amenities and value in the community. It doesn't change the fact that a lot of citizens aren't gonna like this development right in the middle of town, you know? But y'all have a tougher job than me managing growth and development and how do you do it? And you can't please everybody and it's hard. Y'all have a tough job.
Will this stay a gated community as
No.
well? It will not anymore?
No.
That will be gone
No.
too? Okay. I will say positively for some positive constructive feedback, I do like the rework of this
Yeah,
as
the
opposed to
curvilinear, yeah.
the other original plan. This to me is a lot more of what residents said they wanted to see on the comprehensive plan when they were doing that. So I will say positively, I do like this rework better.
And I think there's things like this that I would throw my 2 cents in for y'all as you look at this, because it's a problem that needs to be fixed and done the right way going forward. You know, the best zoning agreements I've seen have flexibility in them, so long as your minimum thresholds are met. So if you're gonna have 40s, it's this number of 40s, this percent. So don't do numbers, do percentages. and then locations within a concept plan, no 40s in this location of the concept plan, right? Curvilinear streets required within X% of the community, X% or acres of open space areas, connectivity with trails, trail widths. I could go on and on because I love it, but those are the things that you have an opportunity to clean up.
I have a
Because
percentage
the
question
concept
in that
plan.
case.
Sorry?
I have a percentage question in
Yes.
that case. You wanna reduce the minimum building size
Yes,
to 1,350
Yes.
square feet.
yes.
What percentage of the development will be that?
I'd have to look at that, but to your point, that would be the smallest floor plan, right? And if we have 5 floor plans that are on 40-foot lots, then I would actually literally go into the financial model and look at how many homes I'm putting in the financial model, because that's what I submit to corporate for approval. I would likely guess that it's no more than 10%, you know, and that's 10% of the 40s, and it's probably
Where would they be?
5% of the community. So, I love that question. So, sense of arrival, the thing that I saw was needed was an entry to the west. And that's why we worked hand in hand with the school district to say, listen, this is good for you on the wastewater treatment plant. What we see as a benefit is entrance to the west. So they worked with us on easement to the west, and that the developer would construct the road, enhance the road with extra landscaping. So if the entrance comes from the left to the right, then the bottom left corner of the concept plan would be the main entrance. It looks like there's 40s there, and looking into this, I wouldn't do that. I would change this up a little bit and say, well, that's where your 50s need to go, because you want your sense of arrival to be larger, more expensive homes, right? So that buyers that come into the community see that value there. And then you want to figure out where you're going to organize the 40s within the community, and what are they adjacent to. And so you could take this kind of concept where they're all grouped together and rearrange them through the community. But instead of having 40s at the entrance, I'd have 50s at the entrance.
The
40s is-
easements have already been negotiated with the school
Yes,
district?
and it's in an
When was that
agreement. It's in an agreement with the school district.
When was that completed?
It was completed maybe 9 months ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was ongoing for a year, back and forth, really trying to make sure we accommodate, you know, their request on the wastewater treatment plant location and the enhancements of the wastewater treatment plant. You know,
So I want to circle back to
and
the,
then it's spelled out in there about how big it's designed for and how many buildings, and, you know, it's elementary school, middle, and high school, but beyond that, we don't know what else their needs may be, and beyond that, they're responsible for upsizing. It's spelled out in that agreement.
circling back to the wastewater treatment plant. So you said the mud will be running the plant will be on school property.
Yes.
Yes, within an easement.
So what kind of lease do you have with the school?
There's no leases usually.
So what happens if they just take their property and say, it's on my property?
Well, so it's in the agreement, right? So they're not allowed to just take it. It's an easement given, and you have obligations to fulfill to make sure, you know, that doesn't happen.
And building off that, the city, correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay and Angie, but the city could not take ownership of a plant on somebody else's property. We could not take the physical building ownership when the city doesn't have the land.
Not without an agreement with the landowner.
I mean,
So I'm not sure about that. I challenge a lot of things, so don't take it the wrong way. But I think if the easement's in place, the agreement talks about expansion of the facilities itself, then I would expect us to be able to hand that over to the city and the easement just stay in place.
all right,
I don't know.
I'm winging it, I don't know.
Though that's the fine print that our attorneys have to review and verify. I mean, it's a good question. But the intent is to deed it over, or not deed it over, but to transfer the facilities on the surface to you, and the school district maintain the easement. It is free because we're building all those facilities for the school.
Is this gonna be considered a tiny home community?
In my opinion, no. Tiny homes, I don't know what they're really defined as, but I mean,
1,350 square feet.
we have homes that, go down to 600 square feet, no garage, 10 feet wide.
That's tinier.
That's tiny. And if you watch tiny home YouTube videos,
Tiny home.
those are tiny, and they're 500, 400 square feet. Here's the thing to think about, right? When you look at development, when you look at, providing homes, right, for your citizens and people like that, you've got to think about, okay, what's the average price of a home? The average price of a new home today in DFW is almost $500,000, right? That average square footage is about 3,000. So when you look at a 1,300, 1,400 square foot home, you're getting to about $250,000, $225,000. And that is almost not affordable right now. When mortgage rates come down in the future, it's gonna change everything. But right now, where we are today with mortgage rates, the most affordable entry-level home is around $225,000. That includes a garage. We have some that don't have garages that are about $190,000. And it's about 700 to 1,000 square feet with no garage. The cheapest home we're looking at building right now is gonna be close to about 150. It's 10 feet wide. We have about 100 of them. They're going in Lake Levant area, and that would be about 150,000 for about 700 square feet, 800 square feet. And just so you know the dynamics and the financial equation for it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Do you have one of these locally that y'all develop?
A community like this?
Mhm.
Yeah, we have about 4 or 5.
Where at?
One of them is called Bridgewater. It was the first one. It's 2,300 homes, 40, 45s, 50s. It's a mud. It's in the county only, no city at all. We did 7-mile sewer line, 3 lift stations, and a water tower and water lines too.
And what was that location?
It's in the Lake Levant Peninsula. So, and it's called Bridgewater. It's on our website. People refer to it as Princeton, but it's in the county. It's not in Princeton, UGJ at all.
How many acres was that?
It was 515 acres, 2,300 homes, 2 huge amenity centers, one's air conditioned, on-site HOA staff, 3 or 4 huge ponds, putting green, 18-hole putting course. Fun, entry-level, kind of master plan community.
And it's a replica of this?
It's not replica, it's an example of 3 product lines and a master plan, and you could see some of the amenities as well, but you couldn't afford to do all of those amenities here. This is 2,300 homes versus only, this phase right here is 700. Now, if we were to do the entire Dove Valley, you could look at that, community as a whole. The entire Dove Valley is closer to 2,000 homes, maybe 1,500. We also have one called North Point. That's in North Fort Worth, a little closer. We don't have an air conditioning amenity though, but we have the product lines there. All the product lines are there.
How many homes are there?
That is about 2,100 homes.
Called North Point?
North Point. And these are on our websites as well. And Honey Creek's a good one. That's in McKinney. Honey Creek is in McKinney. So some cities that we've met with, they'll go look at Honey Creek and Bridgewater and see both of those communities and just get a feel for them, brick and siding and things like that. But all 3 product lines are in those communities.
Will there be any amenities in this plan?
Yes, there's a main amenity center on the north side. It's kind of a quasi-triangle.
It's a what, I'm sorry?
It's kind of like a triangle right there on the north side of the community, in the middle of it.
What is it?
Dark blue. Well, I wasn't sure about an air conditioned amenity yet. We're open to it, but right now it's non-air conditioned. Because right now this is only 750 home sites. And it costs another $400 or $500 grand to make it air conditioned and larger. And you gotta watch out for your HOA dues because you have on-site staff and it's expensive on the HOA. And so you really need 1,200 to 1,500 homes to have an air-conditioned facility and on-site HOA staff there.
So what do you consider a non-AC amenity?
You have restrooms, then you have a large covered pavilion, and you have outdoor grills. But there's no air conditioning room where there would be an office, there's no fitness room or anything like that in the air conditioning space.
Like a park area.
Yes, but a very nice covered park, and I've got examples of that, and I can email you concept plans, so you don't have to drive too far to look at amenities. What we still do is a large resort style pool, and it's about 5,000 square feet of a pool space, which is really nice. You just don't have the air conditioned space, and that's another $500,000 or $600,000 to expand air conditioning space.
What waterway are you pushing the treated wastewater down?
Mustang.
Well, it's to the west of this property and it goes down south.
I thought it changed by the permit, said it was going north to Mustang Creek to Benbrook Lake.
The treatment plant itself moved north.
I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
Your plans in here showing the waste discharge coming towards the city. You guys, the permit request actually directs it, requires it to go north towards Benbrook Lake.
I'd have to look at that and then let you know.
And we'll recycle that water and use it for irrigation as well.
So since we're talking about using it, let's hit the big one here. Since Johnson County just hit the state of emergency for the PFAS, PFOS, what are you guys gonna do for ensuring that any wastewater treatment and stuff coming out of there is free of that?
Well, I mean, that's what we expect our engineers to do. Like, they're the ones that we pay to follow the rules. As a public company, we do it by the book, and we expect them to design in accordance with the regulations. So we would meet with them, they would provide us their design, they would tell us how they're accommodating it, and they have to do their jobs. Yeah, we expect them to treat us just like they treat you and do everything the way it's supposed to be, otherwise we won't do it.
Isn't the problem that there is no regulation on that yet?
Texas is behind the power curve on this. Other states have banned a lot of this stuff, but Texas has not.
And
So-
previously, you said you were going, if the wastewater treatment plant was not completed, you were going to truck it somewhere, so where's the plan for that?
So what happens a lot of times is if it's not done on time, our goal is to still start building homes. And we work with cities or whoever's in charge of the wastewater treatment plant and sewer treatment systems to, instead of having the system pump it where it needs to be pumped and treated, they'll pump it into a truck, right? And they will haul it to another treatment plant that's active, and they will treat it in the other treatment plant. It's standard procedure. It costs a lot of money, but as a public builder, we want to make sure that if we can still hit certain deadlines to start homes on time. So we ask for permission to be able to do that in our development agreements when we work with cities. The goal is not to have to do it, but if we end up running 3 to 6 months behind and aren't ready yet, we want the ability to go pump it and haul it to a proper facility that will treat it the way they're supposed to treat it.
So it will go to a facility, not
Yes.
a land.
That's correct.
Right over the
And we have to get permission from y'all and that other facility to be able to do that. And it's very expensive. We just want the option to be able to do it.
Is there an existing pipeline that runs north up to Benbrook Lake that you're gonna tie into?
Jack,
Now, looking at their plans, it's gonna be a surface release into Mustang Creek.
we have to verify it. That is standard. It's unusual, and I don't know much about the details, but the idea is it's treated with all these chemicals and discharged into creeks, right? And that is how it's done. It's unusual, but then once you realize, okay, well, you're treating it in accordance with TCEQ standards, then it's common practice throughout Texas. So it's something interesting to learn more about. I need to learn more myself, honestly, but that's how it is.
We're getting close to that time, council. Any further questions? Do you have anything you want to summarize with, sir?
No, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you meeting and listening to us, asking a lot of questions. I love it. We want to try to compile, a list of your questions, and we'll send you answers as well. And we're happy to help in the future if you have questions or want clarification on anything in the future.
Any of the answers, send to Ms. Winkle. Yeah, next week, next Tuesday is half the council's last meeting, and the week after, we'll be seating new council, so kind of be starting over.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to adjourn this workshop at 6:21 PM.